Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Say, why was the archaeologist so sad? Because his career was in ruins. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Fortune and Glory from Flying Frog Productions.
We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review.
In Fortune and Glory from Flying Frog Productions, 1 to 8 players take on the roles of various adventurers as they globe-trot in order to find ancient treasures, hidden temples, and all sorts of wacky enemies. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you can play this game in several different game modes. You can play competitive, team competitive, cooperative, or solo. For reasons I'll explain later, I'm just going to go through the cooperative rules overview, and I'll tell you more later. The first thing you're going to do is pick a character. This character has certain stats for various abilities. You're going to go ahead and place them in their starting location. Next, you're also going to go ahead and prepare a multitude of decks. There are many different decks here that you're going to go ahead and set out, including an enemy's deck, city decks, decks to acquire allies or gear. A lot of different kinds of decks are going to go out here. You're also going to pick an enemy. You can either battle the Gangsters or you can battle the Nazis. And they're each going to have their own kind of AI system that triggers them and moves them around. The Nazis even have a little like Hindenburg Zeppelin that's going to go around the board, dropping off kooky Nazis everywhere you go. Now, the heart of the game revolves around artifacts. Essentially, at every time, there's going to be 4 artifacts on the board. What you're going to do is take an artifact card and an adventure card and kind of slide them together, and that is going to create the adventure you're going to go on to claim the artifact. And each one may have symbols associated with it. There's going to be a number of dangers you must overcome, and then there's also going to be what that artifact is worth. Now, as I say, for the cooperative game, you're going to roll initiative, essentially to see who goes first. And depending on maybe what you roll, some other little goodies might trigger or other things will come up as the game progresses. But you're going to go ahead and do that initiative roll. Then you're going to roll for movement. Everybody rolls to see how far they can move. Roll and move, right? You're going to roll to see how many spaces your character can move on the board. Now remember, the board is the globe, and you can move over oceans, and you can move into countries, but the various oceans have essentially like a number. It might be a 1, a 2, or a 3, meaning you have to spend all of that movement to get across those specific locations. Now, you can choose to fight Nazis in your locations. Essentially, they have a card that shows what you're going to have to roll to beat them, and they're going to roll back to try to beat you, and you may gain wound tokens. But you can go ahead and you can fight Nazis or gangsters in all these different locations that you go to. That's one of the things that you can do. Now, the main thing you're going to do is go after the artifacts. Now, when you get to an artifact, the artifact will list how many dangers you have to overcome. A danger is a card you draw, usually from the bottom of the deck, because they're double-sided. And when you look at that card, it's going to tell you which skill it's going to test. So you can roll all the dice in that skill for that card. Now, you may have gear or allies as the game progresses that you can use. So you roll the die in order to beat this adventure. Well, as you roll the die, you have to get at least 1 success. If you get at least 1 success, you can keep rolling. You can keep rolling until you get as many successes as you want. Now, as soon as you pass one danger, there's a certain amount of glory that is associated with it, and you put the glory tokens on that card. Now, you can kind of just choose to end right there. You get the glory, and your turn's over. Or you can push your luck. You can draw the next card and do the same thing, get the glory for that if you succeed, and you keep going. And if you can get all those cards done, then you claim the adventure, you claim the artifact. If, however, at any time on one of those cards, you fail, you lose any glory you've gained that turn on any of those cards, and you flip the card over to its cliffhanger, meaning you've got to come back to this. This is where you're going to start on your next turn. In that case, again, your turn's over. You got to wait till it comes back around to you. If ever you get enough wounds during these adventures, you might be KO'd. You go back to your starting place, you lay down, and all of your stuff kind of is you risk losing it. Now, if you succeed in gaining that artifact, you then grab that artifact and put it next to you. Now, you can go ahead and on your next turn, you're going to try to get to a city. Now, if you get to a silver city, you can sell that artifact to gain a certain number of fortune tokens. If, however, you go to one of the gold cities, you can sell it for that number plus one additional. But every time you go into a city, you do have to draw a city card, and sometimes these are bad things. Sometimes you can get an auction card, meaning you may get even more money, depending on a die roll, for your artifact. You're going around, you're trying to get these adventures, you're trying to build up your wealth in the cooperative game with your fellow explorers. But as I say, your enemies are out there. For instance, the Nazis. If you've chosen the Nazis, they're going to have kind of Nazi commanders and figures that will come on the board, and they will go to these adventures as well. They will try to overcome them. They will try to win them as well through the AI. Now, they will gain gold when they win, and every time they get 3 gold, then you advance their victory marker closer to their goal, which, depending on the player count, is a certain number. But there's other things they're going to do. For instance, the Nazis may have secret bases that pop up. They've got that Zeppelin that's going to move around, dropping off German soldiers. You may have to roll on the tactics chart to see kind of what other funky thing pops up for the Germans. Now, some of the artifacts and adventures may actually be in temples. You actually, in this case, put up a temple, and you're not necessarily trying to go through and get all the dangers like you do in other artifacts. Rather, you're trying to go into the temple. You're risking going into the temple to get just the gold that it's worth. You actually stack the gold that it's worth on the card, and you can kind of keep going in to try to get more gold out of it. But every time you do that, you are risking it collapsing, and again, that'll give you a bad day. You can try to do this several times, but sooner or later, it gets harder, it gets harder, it gets harder. That temple probably will collapse, so you got to be careful there. But those enemies are also going to go there, and they may be more successful than you. Now, players can also spend their glory in cities on artifacts and gear, and these things will give them certain advantages over the course of the game and make their skill checks, their die rolls, hopefully more successful. So players are going around and around. They are battling their enemies. They are going to the artifacts, attempting to roll through those dangers and surviving cliffhangers. They are going to cities, hopefully to sell that fortune, and hopefully they will gain enough fortune to triumph. Now, if the enemies are able to reach their victory number first, the players will lose. But if the players are able to get enough fortune and hit their fortune goal first, then they win. Fortune and glory. Okay, all right. So that's just a bare overview, and again, just the rules overview for the cooperative game. There's other modes, and there's a lot of stuff I'm leaving out there. Okay, I'm just giving you the bare bones of this game. Now, I have a long history with Fortune and Glory. Okay, Fortune and Glory back in the day, 2011, 2010. I can't remember when. This was the first game I ever bought, the first board game I ever bought that cost me $100, and I remember just debating that. I saw this in a local game store. And I kept thinking, should I get it? Should I get it? Should I get it? It's a lot of money, but it looks so fun. And eventually I broke down and I bought it. Now, a good buddy of mine was going through a pretty rough time about this time. He was going through a divorce, and it was really tough on him. And he and I, for about 6 months, would get together, and about 2 or 3 times a week, we would play Fortune and Glory. And we had so much fun. And I know it took his mind off of some of his troubles, at least for a little while. And we just had a ball with this game. We really enjoyed it. We played it in different modes. We played it in the competitive mode, and we played it in the team competitive mode once. And what we found is they were okay, they were fun, but we always had much more fun when we played it cooperatively. And then I had by myself played it solo a few times. And so I really appreciated the way you can play it differently. But my favorite way to play it was cooperative. That was always the most fun way to play this game for me. And so I really, really liked that quite a bit. Now, as the years went by and other games came out, and ooh, new shiny, shiny, I kind of lost my love for this game. I remember when Eldritch Horror came out. That was kind of the nail in the coffin. I made a video about breaking up with Fortune and Glory. Um, and, for a while, I kind of didn't think much about it. And then, a few years ago, I was really missing this game. I actually gave it to my buddy. And as I, moved away and stuff, I was like, I kind of wish I hung on to that one. Kind of wish I hung on to that one. And I was kind of thinking here and there, I wouldn't mind trying that one again. I wouldn't mind trying that one again. And then here, I just saw recently they came out with a new edition. Now, this new edition is a smaller box, which is because that was a big old coffin box. This is a smaller box, and it's got some improvements. The to the rule book. The rule book, I think they corrected some things. And critically, one thing that I absolutely hated about the first edition is there was no index, and this rule book has an index, which I was really happy about. Well, a few days ago, I reached out to the good people at Flying Frog Productions, and they next day got right back to me, and oh yes, absolutely, we'd love to send you a copy. Oh, awesome! So they sent me this review copy. Immediately, I'm unboxing it. I'm like, oh, so many memories, and so much love for this game came flooding back to me. And so Ray came over and we set it up and we played it, playing the cooperative game up against the Nazis, and we're playing this game. And first of all, just like a little thing went off of my head, something I did whenever I played this game before, without even consciously thinking of it, I would just start humming to myself or whatever you want to call it. I just go bum, ba bum, bum, ba bum, bum, ba bum, bum, ba. And I think I was driving Ray crazy because I kind of couldn't get that out of my head. But that's what it evokes. This game is an Indiana Jones adventure game without the IP. I mean, but fundamentally, that's what it feels like. It's what it is. And one thing too, let me comment here. One thing I've always loved about Flying Frog Productions is I love the um, the aesthetic where it's not artwork, it's pictures of people in costume. And I know they took a lot of hate for that back in the day, but man, I ate that up. I don't know. I guess I have a theater background, so I just thought that was so cool and original. You just don't see that. I mean, who does that? But they did, and they do it well. And they get people that really look like what you would expect in these situations. And I always thought that was so well done, so clever, so fun. I really loved that, and I particularly enjoyed that this game, Fortune and Glory, also has a photograph of our very own Bus Riley. I just uh, really and truly forgot how much fun this game could be. I kind of got lost in the woods with like I say with some newer games and different games, but this is just a solid fun game. Now, having said all that, one of my big criticisms previously was it can be fiddly. And let me be clear, the game can be fiddly. When you're doing the enemy AI steps, there's a lot of steps and a lot of things you got to remember. I kind of had wished that had been a little streamlined. But in my mind, I had kind of built that up over the years, and maybe as my justification for not, for having given it away, it was that, oh, it's too fiddly, it's too fiddly. And I was thinking that for a long time, it's too fiddly. And frankly, yes, there is fiddliness here, but it is not as nearly as bad as I remembered it was. It's fairly straightforward. And maybe it's just because I played so many more games in the intervening decade that it didn't bother me. No, this is fun. This is just a super fun game. Ray loves it. I think Ray may even like it better than I do. I know he got a copy. It's a push your luck game, right? When you're going on those adventures and you're trying to get through there, you're pushing your luck and you're winning those things. But the stories come through, the theme comes through, and like I say, it's an Indiana Jones game in a box without the IP. Really enjoy Fortune and Glory. I want to recommend you go ahead and buy it. It's not an inexpensive game, so you got to take that into account. But honestly, I think this is one. If I didn't have this copy, I might pick it up again because it's super fun. Recommendation for the discriminating gamer for Fortune and Glory is buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We'd ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. I'd also ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to please check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history, books on history, fun things like that. I even post some of my lectures on that channel. Please check that out. Please subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. Also, too, please leave a thumb to this video on Board Game Geek, and if you really do enjoy the content we bring you, please, I would humbly ask you to click on the Super Thanks button and leave a tip. Ladies and gentlemen, I recently watched Temple of Doom again the other day, and the more I watched it, the more I realized that thuggy priest, he was a pretty inspirational guy. He touched a lot of hearts.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I've been dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
Because of budget cutbacks, the Earth Star Alliance has only given us one escape pod.